inshallah, our next presentation will be titled The Prophet ﷺ's Predictions of the Contemporary World, and it will be by Afeefah Haqq. So I welcome Afeefah Haqq to the stage.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, everyone. I'd like to begin my speech with a quote by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, Islam will certainly reach every place touched by the night and day. Allah will not leave a house of mud or even fur, except that He will allow the religion to enter it. Now, when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ first shared this hadith with the Sahabi, they thought it was completely unrealistic. Only a few hundred people at the time were following Islam. How could it have been gone to the point where so many people could follow it? It was completely unfathomable to them. However, as one of the 2 billion Muslims alive today in the 21st century, the thing that seems more unfathomable to us is, how did a man living in the desert 1400 years ago know that Islam was going to become so huge? How did he know about all of this so precisely and accurately, right? Hundreds of religions die off, yet Islam still remains to this day. As Qadi Iyad put it, this genre of hadith is a bottomless ocean and an unending stream. This is not the only hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's predictions. There are so many of them, from the vast and different technological advancements, to the literacy rate of the world being almost 100%, to the growth in population. These hadiths are not just prophecies by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They are warnings. They are warnings to the Muslims that will be living in the end of times. And those Muslims are us. One of the greatest things that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ predicted was the widespread wealth of humanity and the greed that will arise in Muslims as a result of it. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, the hour will not be established until a man comes to give charity that is due on his wealth, and he cannot find anybody that will accept it from him. That is how abundant and overflowing our wealth will become. And are we not living in this today? Everybody here, subhanAllah, they have enough money to be living in Canada. They can pay for their food, their water, everything. We are extremely privileged individuals as Muslims here today. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also talked about the Euphrates River drying up and how there will be mountains of gold that will arise and people will fight over it, and how he tells us as Muslims that we should not accept any of the money that comes from here. The reason why the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he told us so much why we should not be greedy, why we should value our wealth. There's a reason for this. You see, every single person, Muslim or not, every single person on this planet has purpose in their life. There is something that gives them purpose. Every single person on this planet has something that they wake up for every morning. Every single person on this planet is a slave to something. And if your purpose for living is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're not waking up every morning to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are not a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will become a slave to something else, something from this dunya. And unfortunately, one of the biggest things that Muslims in today's ummah become a slave to is money. So many Muslims, they care so much about increasing their wealth, about getting more and more money, stacking dollars all the way up to the roof. And yet, they completely forget about hasanat. So many Muslims will spend hours upon hours getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in the currency of this life, only to be left in poverty on the Day of Judgment because they never earned any currency of the afterlife. Another thing that greed causes is conflict. Greed breeds conflict. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, by Allah, I do not fear poverty overtaking you, but I fear that you will become abundant in wealth as nations before you. And it will cause you to compete in it as they competed in it, and it will destroy you as it destroyed them. Do we not see this occurring today? So many unnecessary wars, conflicts, genocides, all killing millions of innocent individuals. And for what? Just so that a few elitists can become millions richer than they already are? Just so that they can fill their pockets with more money than they even know what to do with? Money that they cannot take with them beyond the grave? Being greedy, it causes you to be selfish. It causes you to be heartless towards other individuals. It causes you to only think about yourself and how I can gain more and more and more, and not about how I can help others get more and more and more. Speaking of how greed can make you violent, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also predicted violence as well. He said, by the one in whose my soul is in their hands, the world will not end until a killer does not know why he killed, and the killed why he was killed. Do we not see this today occurring in Palestine? Hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, children, Palestinians, they are all being killed and they have no idea why. And the people that are waging these attacks on them, do they not stop to think about why they're doing this? Do they never stop to think about why they are marching towards these defenseless, unarmed people with firearms and bombs? Do they never stop to think about why they are killing children that haven't even learned to speak? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, the hour will not commence until knowledge is removed, earthquakes become frequent, time narrows, turmoil surfaces, and anarchy increases. Namely killing, lots of killing. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, knowledge will be removed, do we not see this occurring today as well? With the rise of social media and the internet, and the downfall of our attention spans and critical thinking, it has never been easier in the history of humanity for one person to spread misinformation to hundreds of thousands across the globe. As long as you have a smartphone and you have an internet access, you can post yourself to the internet saying whatever you please, regardless of whether it's truthful or not, whether it's helpful or harmful. You can post that and it can reach and resonate with hundreds of thousands across the globe without you even having to meet them, to specifically talk to them. And because of this, there are so many different harmful ideologies of the West that are arising and becoming extremely popular on the internet. LGBTQ, modern feminism, secularism, capitalism, all these things that go against Islam, yet are resonating so deeply with the Islamic youth instead of Islam. All of these ideologies, they go against Islam. They're trying to break down the idea that there is an afterlife so that we as Muslims will indulge in our temptations in this life and not care about others and not care about what happens after we die. There is so much of the Muslim youth who is being misguided and manipulated by the media without even realizing it. They see it on their feeds every day, and they don't care about the fact that it's polluting their mind and it's polluting their deen and it's breaking them down. They simply see something and they believe it. The Prophet ﷺ said, an age will come when Muslims will gather in masjids and pray, yet there will not be a single believer amongst them. As I said before, so much of the Muslim youth is being manipulated by all these different harmful Western ideologies. And as a result, they don't know much about Islam. SubhanAllah, there are so many Muslims that are growing up in Muslim households, yet they don't know anything about Islam beyond the surface. They pray 5 times a day, but not because they truly understand the need for salah, but because of the fact that someone told them to do so. The Muslim youth, they will read the Quran, not because they truly want to recite the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand its meaning, but because they have a Quran teacher that's going to test them in 20 minutes. SubhanAllah, the Muslim youth will say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, not because they truly believe it in their hearts, but because it is what everyone else around them is saying. When a Muslim's iman becomes so weak to the point where they don't even understand Islam and the reason why they do what they do, it becomes so easy for one of these degenerate Western ideologies to take its place in Islam. When you do not understand what you are standing on, you will not realize when you're falling. And so, in conclusion, if there's one thing that I want any of you guys to take away from my speech today, it would be this. Educate yourself on Islam. Educate yourself on the beauty of Islam. Truly, Islam is so vast and deep in itself that there is so much that you and I still have no idea about. And you will not understand just how beautiful Islam is until you finally do the research for yourself. And do not let your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take a backseat to anything, no matter what happens in your life and no matter what tempts you. Not money, not fame, not approval from others, nothing. Know this today in your heart. just like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, a man living in the desert 1400 years ago did. Jazakumullahu khairan, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.